Monday, September 1st, 1890. This is most likely the date we'll begin our adventure in the wizarding world when Hogwarts Legacy is released. And now that we have that specific date, we can take the knowledge we already know from sources of Harry Potter canon and combine that with information we've received directly from Avalanche and WB in the form of official trailers, blog posts, and the website FAQ. Pulling the original lore together with this new information will help us get a much clearer picture of the 1890s wizarding world, the challenges wizards face during this time period, and potentially even some of the major plot points we'll be encountering in the game. We'll start by taking a look at what Avalanche has said about the wizarding world and where they see their story fitting in the overall mythos of J.K. Rowling's wizarding world of Harry Potter. For this, we'll go directly to the official FAQ on the Hogwarts Legacy website. There are actually 7 questions relating directly to story and lore listed on the site. All of them contain significant answers, but none more so than this one. Will Hogwarts Legacy adhere to wizarding world lore? Yes, while Hogwarts Legacy is not a direct adaptation of the books and films, the games are anchored in wizarding world lore. Avalanche is creating a unique gaming experience that is inspired by the magical universe created by J.K. Rowling's wizarding world, in which players will find new and unexpected locations, characters, and story elements. So here we learn 2 important things. 1. It's clear the game will be anchored firmly in the wizarding world we all know and love. This is backed up even further in a recent developer interview.
We really want to make sure that anything we add or anything we play with or anything that we explore really feels authentic.
The second thing we learn is that Avalanche has been given the creative freedom to explore new elements introduced that are creations of their own, but still fitting into the lore we already know.
Being able to put our own spin on what this universe is was a pretty big deal.
These points are further driven home in yet another FAQ question, which reads, how does Hogwarts Legacy fit into the Harry Potter wizarding world? While Portkey games are not direct adaptations of the books and films, the games are firmly rooted in the magical universe of the wizarding world. While remaining true to J.K. Rowling's original vision, Portkey game developers chart new territory by creating fresh ways for fans to immerse themselves in the wizarding world. Now that we've established the developers' intention to have these games firmly rooted in the wizarding world we know, we can begin to set the stage for September 1st, 1890. Broadly speaking, the late 1800s were a time of increased tensions within the wizarding world, largely due to their ongoing disagreements in how they should coexist with muggles. While human wizards and witches struggled with how to balance their magic in a world mostly populated with muggles, they also struggled in their relationships with magical creatures, particularly the more intelligent beings like goblins and centaurs. Ultimately, we know it was this period that led directly to the rise of Gellert Grindelwald and eventually Tom Riddle, who of course became Lord Voldemort. There are 3 specific Wizarding World events prior to 1890 which helped to set the landscape for Hogwarts Legacy. The first would be the creation of Hogwarts itself in approximately 990 AD. By now, Potter fans know the story of Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin all too well. They were known as 4 of the greatest wizards and witches of their age and had a collective desire to make the world's best magical school, but disagreed in which students should be permitted to learn magic. This of course led to Slytherin leaving the school, but also to him creating the Chamber of Secrets before he did so. You see, the 10th century was not a happy one for those who performed magic, as many were persecuted by muggles for their magical abilities. In the years before 100 AD, muggles and wizards lived mostly in harmony, with many religious and political leaders of the time actually practicing magic themselves. But over the next 1,000 years or so, that relationship deteriorated and more muggles began to grow jealous and fear wizards. And this leads us to the second major Wizarding World event that happens before Hogwarts Legacy. The establishment of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy, which went into effect in 1692. This would eventually lead to the formal creation of the Ministry of Magic in 1707. Throughout the Harry Potter series, we see numerous ways in which the wizarding world goes to great lengths to stay hidden from the Muggle world. For our Hogwarts Legacy timeline of 1890, these precautions wouldn't have been as entrenched as they are in Harry Potter's day, but they would have had more than 180 years to grow accustomed to having a governing body like the Ministry of Magic and adjusting to this new way of life that saw them keeping their magic secret from muggles. While the balance of wizarding and muggle relationships was the primary challenge for wizards in the years leading up to Hogwarts Legacy, it certainly wasn't the only one, which leads us to the third major event, which is actually a series of events throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, all surrounding one particular issue. Of course, I'm referring to the Goblin Rebellions. There was a number of violent goblin rebellions across these 2 centuries, with goblins who were fighting against what they saw as discrimination and prejudice from wizards and witches. One rebellion that took place in 1612 happened close to Hogsmeade, which saw one of the inns there used as headquarters for the rebellion. This particular conflict led to a clause being added to the Code of Wand Use, which was passed by the Wizards' Council, a group that governed Britain's wizarding community prior to the establishment of the Ministry, to state that no non-human creature was permitted to carry or use a wand. This law would only further contribute to the problem and helped lead to more rebellions. One revolt that began in 1752 led to 2 ministers for magic losing their position. It took a seasoned Auror in Hephaestus Gore taking over as minister to put down what was a particularly bloody revolt, one which even saw werewolves fighting on the side of goblins. Gore showed little sympathy for werewolves that fought on the side of goblins, but many believe this stance only led to further attacks in the coming years. While we don't know every detail about what happened in the years after to help cool the tensions with goblins and other creatures, we do know that Grogan Stump played a key role in helping to improve wizard relations with creatures and beings. Stump served as Minister for Magic from 1811 to 1819 and helped to pass key legislation that saw the creation of the Being, Beast, and Spirit divisions within the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. Stump helped to settle what had previously been a long debate in the wizarding world over which creatures should be considered beings. He decreed that any creature having sufficient intelligence to understand laws of the magical community and to also help bear responsibility in shaping those laws should be treated as beings rather than beasts. In addition to Stump's efforts as minister, it's also safe to say that the Ministry returning full control of Gringotts back to the goblins in 1865 certainly played a role in placating them as well. We learn a great deal about the relationship between goblins and wizards in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, particularly in the trio's interactions with Griphook over the Sword of Gryffindor, which was of course made by goblins. Here we learn that the goblin concept of ownership is very different from that of wizards. Bill Weasley tells Harry that to a goblin, the rightful and true master of any object is the maker, not the purchaser. So given that Gringotts itself was founded by a goblin, there's no doubt the return of it fully into their hands in 1865 would have been seen as wizards merely restoring what was rightfully theirs in the first place. When it comes to wizard and goblin relations throughout the Harry Potter series, there's still much we don't know, which could also be seen as plenty of opportunity for a game like Hogwarts Legacy to explore further. One thing that is clear is that neither party is completely innocent in the matter. And this takes us all the way up to September 1st, 1890, when presumably our adventure in Hogwarts Legacy begins. The headline from the Daily Prophet appears to be questioning the validity of another possible goblin rebellion. Note the use of the word gobbledygook here, as it's actually the goblin's native language. While the trailer itself talks of a possible goblin rebellion, the PlayStation blog post from community manager Chandler Wood appears to outright confirm the rebellion is legitimate. It reads, "Your ties to an ancient magic put you on a collision course with a goblin rebellion led by Ranrock, aided by his alliance with the dark wizard Victor Rookwood, who both present formidable threats to the entire wizarding world." And then later, to unearth the mysteries behind ancient magic and stop Ranrock's rebellion, you'll need a friend and mentor to guide you along the way. Enter Professor Eleazar Fig, whose investigations into rumors of a goblin rebellion have earned him an uneasy skepticism from the Ministry of Magic. And so we're introduced to 3 characters, all of which are certain to feature prominently in Hogwarts Legacy. Let's talk about Professor Fig first. He's described as accomplished and enigmatic, yet it would appear those in the Ministry aren't taking him seriously, which will undoubtedly draw comparisons to Harry Potter's era, when the Ministry didn't want to believe in Voldemort's return. The trailer clearly wants us to see Fig as an ally worthy of our trust, but longtime Potter fans will no doubt treat both Fig and the Ministry of the day with a heavy dose of skepticism until we're able to learn more about them. While many believe Eleazar Fig could be a likely ancestor for Arabella Fig from the Harry Potter series, I'm undecided, as Avalanche appears to be spelling Fig with only one G, whereas Arabella Fig's last name was with 2 Gs. I don't think this instantly debunks the possibility of the two being related, but I do think it's worthy to note. One scene I found particularly striking in the trailer is this confrontation between Professor Fig and Ranrock. My guess on the location here is Gringotts, and the two goblins alongside Ranrock appear to be security officers. But what I found most interesting here is that it's Professor Fig who appears to strike first, not Ranrock. Of course, there's much we still don't know about this particular encounter, such as why Fig and the main character are here in the first place. Is this an escape, or possibly a break-in? As for Ranrock, he shows he's plenty powerful even without the use of a wand, and I've seen a number of theories popping up already about if there's any significance to the armor he's wearing here, and even the potential for magical properties within the armor itself. The blog post appears to confirm he is in fact leading a rebellion, but we don't know why. Narrative lead Moira Squirer does share a bit more about Ranrock's motivations, which reads as follows. Ranrock has seen a glimmer of a magic that wizard kind tried to hide, even from themselves, and he wants that power in particular. His worldview is skewed by his hatred of wizards, which makes his alliance with Victor Rookwood particularly tenuous. Once Ranrock gets what he wants, no one will be able to stop him, and the wizarding world will be doomed. There's certainly a lot of information in just a few short sentences here. First, we have it confirmed that Ranrock hates wizards, which means his alliance with Rookwood is a reluctant one, and likely born out of necessity. We also learn this power is something that wizards have tried to hide even from themselves, but more on that later. The trailer also shows a specific interaction between Rookwood and Ranrock.
You said you could get to the child when they came to Hogsmeade. That all you needed was a distraction. I gave you a distraction.
I just watched a student take down your distraction. Who is this child? Are you not telling me?
I think it's likely the distraction is the large armored troll we see in the trailer here, as it appears to be crashing through buildings in Hogsmeade. Note the red eyes, which appear to denote corrupted creatures by a magical force. And yet, for reasons we don't know, Ranrock doesn't appear to be fully comfortable in going after the child on his own, but instead needs Rookwood's help. We also learn that Rookwood isn't privy to Ranrock's full plan, as he doesn't appear to know about why the child is significant. And speaking of Rookwood, we don't know much about his motivations here, other than the blog referring to him specifically as a dark wizard. And yes, I do think it's highly likely that known Death Eater Augustus Rookwood is one of his descendants. We know that Augustus Rookwood worked in the Ministry of Magic as an unspeakable, which are witches or wizards who worked specifically in the Department of Mysteries. Is it possible Victor also worked in the Department of Mysteries, and maybe was even involved in the cover-up of this ancient magic that Ranrock is after? And this brings us to what is undoubtedly a central plot point for Hogwarts Legacy, as well as a key gameplay element: ancient magic. We know the main character has what is described in the gameplay trailer as being an unusual ability to manipulate powerful ancient magic hidden in the wizarding world. There are two things we know for sure about this power. 1. Wizard kind attempt to hide the power, and 2. Ranrock wants this power. Based on Squire's comments, we can also infer two additional pieces of information. One being that this power is so significant, it actually risks the destruction of the wizarding world in the wrong hands. The second point is that Ranrock appears to believe he has a way to harness this power for himself, or somehow convince us, the main character, to join him. The first Hogwarts Legacy trailer also had what I think is a very important line relating to ancient magic. There is a larger world beyond these walls. A world filled with dangers you cannot yet imagine, and ancient magic long gone from this world. That strange and mysterious talent you possess may be the key to unlocking this dormant power. Your potential is limitless. It's the wording here that's particularly interesting, as it almost seems to imply there are multiple powers. Note how the narrator says, that strange and mysterious talent you possess may be the key to unlocking this dormant power. So is the strange and mysterious talent somehow separate from the dormant power? The phrase ancient magic isn't entirely new to the lore of Harry Potter. The Harry Potter Lexicon describes ancient magic as magic that is triggered by events and powers endemic to the nature of reality. It is extremely old and mysterious, and a wand is not necessary for it to work.
And the avatar, the player, has the ability to sense it and possibly wield it or control it.
Notice the sequence we see here in the gameplay trailer as the narrator talks about our relationship to ancient magic. We see what appears to be a portal that, when touched by our character with nothing but their hand, turns to stone, as if the portal itself was never there. There's also this scene here, where our character joins Professor Fig in what appears to be a room with many of these portals. It would seem to me the main character's strange and mysterious talent could very well be one of detection, an ability to reveal ancient magic, and in turn, the location of powers that have been left behind. Perhaps the ancient magic we unlock is actually a collection of powers left behind in the wizarding world by a powerful witch or wizard, such as one or maybe all of the 4 Hogwarts founders, or perhaps even Merlin, and that our character possesses the ability to detect and find these ancient powers the wizarding world attempted to hide. The specific ancient powers we can unlock appear to manifest in different ways. We see 2 in the gameplay trailer as the narrator says,
"You can even use the mysterious, powerful magic your professors do not understand to obliterate your strongest foes."
The powers appear to manifest visually with this black and white effect we see here as our character uses a dash ability that almost appears as a form of short-range apparition, followed up by a spell that calls down lightning from above. This concept of multiple powers that can only be unlocked by the main character would also fit with Ranrock wanting to control and use this power, but he needs us to lead him to it. Game director Alan Tu said, "The most ever-present part of the wizarding world is its magic, and the playful nature and realness of its distinct rules should fuel a surprising, dark mystery that tests the combined resources of those who discover it. Given the numerous twists and turns throughout the original series, it should come as no surprise the devs at Avalanche are wanting to tell a story with an air of mystery. And one of the biggest mysteries we have so far is why our character starts Hogwarts as a 5th year."
You are a new student who is starting at the famed School of Witchcraft and Wizardry as a 5th year, which is very unusual. So already there's a bit of an edge and a bit of a mystery.
Squire says, "Players will get to experience what it was like for Harry starting at a new wizarding school and knowing no one at all. And, like Harry, the player's character is a bit of a celebrity from the outset due to the fact that they are starting as a 5th year and because they survived before she stopped short of answering. The fact that our character knows no one at all, combined with the fact that we have special activities at school to help us catch up with other students, leads me to believe our main character hasn't grown up in the wizarding world. And I'm also inclined to believe that whatever we survived is what somehow unlocked this latent magical power within us. This video is likely the first of many on the story of Hogwarts Legacy and how it will build on the wizarding world we've all come to know and love. If you're looking to brush up on the lore of the original series, there's no better source than the books themselves. You can download any of the 7 Harry Potter audiobooks for free by taking advantage of a 30-day trial from audible.com, and you can even keep the audiobook if you cancel the free trial. Also, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you'll actually receive 2 Audible credits with the trial, which you could use to download 2 Harry Potter books, and again, keep them even if you cancel before the 30-day trial ends. If you're interested, use the link on your screen now, or find it in the video description below. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.